We are just days away from August camp in Ann Arbor, sizing up the Michigan football team for 2015. We bring in Anthony Broome of Maize n Brew to help us sort through the personnel and see where the Wolverines could stand about 6 weeks from now when they go all the way out west to take on the Utah Utes in a bit of a rematch from last season's 26-10 game. Anthony, as always, appreciate the time for helping us out here. Let's dive right into the quarterbacks. Jake Rudock would seem to be the safe pick at this point because we've seen what he's capable of at Iowa, 34 career touchdown passes. Shane Morris looked to be the heir apparent a couple years ago, got the bull start and some limited action last year. Then you bring in guys with all sorts of promise and stars next to their recruiting names, Alex Malzone and also Zach Gentry. I know Wilton Spate's got a year in the system. Can you somehow sort out this quarterback competition for us?
Well, I do think it's going to be a two-horse race. To me, I know a lot of people have Jake Rudock kind of penciled in as a starter. I think that it's Shane Morris's job to lose. Ultimately, I think that I saw enough from him in the spring game and enough things, talking to other people, that I think that the leadership qualities are there. He's got a great arm. Hasn't really had too much experience in the system yet, but Jake Rudock, to me, a lot of people want to anoint him the savior at the position, and Iowa didn't really fight all that hard to keep him. So to me, Rudock has always kind of been more of a safety valve in case breaking in case of emergency type player. I think a lot of people expect Shane Morris to take that next step as a junior and take the reins on the starting job, but like you said, Jake Rudock is a safe pick there if Morris doesn't hold on to the job. And in terms of the other guys, Zach Gentry, unless he lights up camp, I see him being a possible red shirt. Wilton Spate, we'll see what happens with him. Not extremely high on him at this point. And Alex Malzone showed some good things in the spring game, but doesn't look like he's ready yet either. So where we stand today, I would definitely call it a two-horse race between Morris and Rudock.
Yeah, I thought there was no question that Morris was the better quarterback out of the two during the spring game. He's a guy that I first saw, and I guess everybody first saw in that bowl game against Kansas State. And I know the final score wasn't pretty at 31-14, but I thought he played a very good game considering the offense was a bit locked down. They didn't really open it up and let him test the defense, but I thought he played pretty well. I think he can dismiss last year's 40%. Under limited stats and attempts because the offense outside of the quarterback position was a bit spotty, no question, along the offensive line and so forth. So let's bring up the Michigan offensive line because that's where Michigan football starts, starting back with Bo and going through the Lloyd Carr years of most recent. The offensive line, a place of great pride for Michigan football, but in recent years have not been able to run the football. You got Derek Green in place, who, again, was a highly touted player coming out of high school. I hear a lot of good things about Ty Isaac. Are there hopes that the running game can do better things this year?
Well, like you said, the offensive line is definitely the key to everything, and I think that's where we'll see the most improvement on that side of the ball for Michigan. Tim Drevno has been coaching offensive linemen for a long time. They have some good pieces there. Mason Cole, as a true freshman, was very good at left tackle. Who else we got? Kyle Kalis was a highly regarded recruit who's shown flashes at times, and pretty much everyone's coming back on that line. So I think that's important. The chemistry will be there. The coaching will definitely be there, and they have the running backs to really produce on that in the run game and what have you. And I'm a little bit bullish on their skill players, but you can make that a lot easier to swallow if your offensive line is better than average, which I expect them to be that this year.
So, Anthony, since you're bullish on the skilled players, I'd like to hear a little bit of a breakdown because the Michigan wide receiver position has been prolific in the last 25 years. Great players coming out of that position. Devin Funchess, tight end / wideout. He moves on to the NFL. We have not seen that type of player that's been able to scare a defense in the last couple of years. Amara Darboh, Brian Cole, I know big things are expected of him. Are those names in the mix and other guys, and why are you bullish on the skill position guys?
Well, it's not because I don't think the talent's not there. it definitely is. They've recruited some good guys. You brought up Brian Cole. He's a true freshman, early enrollee, a 4-star kid. He looks like he could get some early time, maybe in the slot. We'll see what happens there. Freddie Canteen is another player that a lot of people he was a 4-star recruit. Shown flashes at times of being a good wide receiver, but I think the two guys that ultimately start on the outside are Amara Darboh and J.U. Chesson. Drops have plagued both of them in the past. And like I said, I do think there's talent there, but it's a lot of unproven talent. And, until we see it, I'm not sold on the passing game just yet.
All right, let's move to the defense because you've got a situation where the national narrative may be this was a 5-7 football team, so the defense must have been no good. The defense was actually pretty good, and considering where the offense usually placed the defense after a 3-and-out, bad field position, turnovers that set up the defense in bad position most of the time, I thought the defense acquitted itself very well in most games. You lose Frank Clark. I know he was suspended near the end of 2014. Blake Countess was a guy that at one point I thought was going to be one of the better defensive backs in the Big Ten. He had the one huge season, kind of tapered off to a certain extent there. Scan the defense for us, kind of go unit by unit. Let us know what we can look for there and what your hopes are out of this defense.
Well, yeah, they lost some players. Frank Clark is one. Blake Countess is one to transfer. But I still think the defense has, I believe they were a top 10 defense nationally last year, and a lot of those key players are coming back, and you're getting a guy back in the secondary in Jabril Peppers, who didn't play last year, but there's a lot of hype there with him. He moves over to safety from cornerback. Defensive line is good. You have Willie Henry there, Ryan Glasgow's there. Those guys will be playing at tackle. We'll see what happens at defensive end. They've got some guys in the rotation there. Lawrence Marshall had a good spring camp. He's expected to be in the mix. The linebackers are as deep as any position group in the nation. You've got James Ross, Joel Bolden, Desmond Morgan. There's a lot of talent there. And now you have a guy in DJ Durkin who, one of the better defensive coordinators in college football. So if you put all that together, it's definitely a position group that, we'll see what happens. Blake Countess, I don't think, is a huge loss for them because they're going to play a lot more physical press coverage, man-to-man. You've got Wayne Lyons coming in from Stanford, who will get one of the starting corner spots. Jordan Lewis played well at times. He'll start at the other corner. So, there's a lot there to like. A lot of good players there, and with DJ Durkin coaching them and Greg Madison sticking on as a defensive line coach, it's a group that it should be among the best in the Big Ten, right up there with Michigan State, Ohio State, and Penn State. 3 very good defenses that bring back quite a bit. So they're going to have to carry the load, but they have the goods to do it. And, I think that defense is going to win them a lot of low-scoring, ugly games.
When you scan the personnel, as you just have for us, there is a bit of a question at quarterback, but let's say it is Rudock. We know that he's not going to be an elite Big Ten quarterback, but he's going to be somebody that you can count on taking care of the football, managing the game, completing 60% of his throws, something in that range. You're high on the skill position players. If the offensive line that returns a veteran group can improve, the defense is really good. It seems like this is the dark horse pick in the Big Ten, that this could be the team, especially with Harbaugh's track record of turning programs around on a dime. It took a little time at Stanford, but that was a really bad situation personnel-wise. Right. That not to get hopes up, but there's a possible jump here in the standings.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I have them personally. They're probably a 7, 8, maybe 9 win football team, but like you said, Jim Harbaugh is the expert of the quick turnaround because of who they have coaching them. I won't rule out a 10-2 season just because. A couple bounces of the football here, it's a completely different season. So, I think the game late in the year, it's the second to last week of the year, they go to play at Penn State. I think that's going to be for 3rd place in the East. I still think Ohio State's Ohio State, national title contender. Michigan State brings back a lot. They have both of those games at home, so maybe an upset happens there. But those 2 teams will be who I see at the top, and then Michigan and Penn State will be fighting out for 3rd in the East. And like I said, we'll see what happens there. But because of who they have coaching them, won't rule out 10 wins, but 8 looks more likely.
And you bring up Ohio State after losing 3 games in the last 3 years under Urban Meyer. If you just isolated Michigan's performance against Ohio State, you would think, well, if this team's competed for a national championship, this team that they're playing in Ann Arbor's a top 10 team because the games have been really competitive. Utah in week 1, you go all the way out there. So any thoughts about, wow, I wish we really could have warmed up and broken in against a Central Michigan or somebody like that, especially going on the road, and this is a very underappreciated venue when it comes to hostility in college football. To go out to Utah, it's a difficult place to play.
Yeah, tough game. Really one of the first big college football games of the year on a Thursday night. Jim Harbaugh's first game. There's a lot of hype surrounding that. It's going to be a tough game, though. Utah's a good team. They bring back quite a bit from last year. Michigan has never really fared all that well when they go out west, so I think a lot of people are sort of worried about that. And they're right out of the gate. I mean, it's gonna be a baptism by fire deal. Let's see how much better Jim Harbaugh has made this team in the offseason. You go through their non-conference schedule, that there are some tough games there. Oregon State at home could give them some problems. BYU, a lot of people think will give them some problems. So, 3 of your first 4 games are pretty difficult, and you're going to know where this team stands pretty early on. And, I think they have a good chance to win all 4 of those games. But Utah right off the bat is a stiff test, and we'll see how they respond to that.
Yeah, some trips in the past to Oregon and Washington in particular come to mind when you mention trips over the last 20 years in Michigan history heading out west in September. Anthony Broome from Maize n Brew joining us to break down some Michigan football. Anthony, hopefully we can catch up with you if anything breaks in camp, some big news, and get us set for 2015.
Absolutely, anytime. Always enjoy it, Mark.